Alright guys, so this is part 2 of how I found my way to the craft, my path to the craft, as I've been saying in my head for the past 15 minutes. Anyway, so I kind of want to talk about going into the background a little bit. So I was skipping around a lot in the last video, and I was having a hard time collecting my thoughts. That's going to happen a lot. I'm going to space out sometimes. I'm going to forget the things that I've said. Um, it's just who I am. It's just me. Anyway, so I want to talk about how I was also getting into, like, when I was young, or I was getting into ghosts and stuff. The main reason I was obsessed with ghosts was because when I was about, I want to say, I don't know how young I was, but I know I was still in a crib when, so I lived in Springfield, Missouri, um, as a really young kid, and the house that we lived in, don't know if it was haunted or not. My parents didn't seem to think that it was, but I know that this is where my fear of the dark kind of stemmed from, because there was what I can only describe as like a shadow man, that would be in the corner of my room, and he would always just be looking at me. He would just be watching me. He wouldn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He just watched me, but it was kind of scary because, all I saw was a silhouette of a person with red eyes and just staring at me. So I was really freaked out. So as I kind of got older as a kid, I started becoming obsessed with ghosts. I started trying to want to talk to them, trying to contact them, and stuff like that. The way that ghost hunters would on, sci-fi. I was obsessed with that show. That was what kind of kick-started everything. And I would actually go in and try and talk to ghosts. Never got anything, but I tried. Another thing that I want to talk about is that I think is important is that my family has these gifts. I don't know of any witches being in our family, but I do know that my family has this thing on my dad's side that most of them dream of the future. So, like, they have premonitions of, like, what's going to happen, something big's coming type deal. Like, personally, I know what my dad was talking about when he was explaining it to me, because I had a dream that I was going to a football game, and then, I went to a football game not long after that dream happened. So I kind of knew what he was talking about. And my grandma actually has a thing where she can contact ghosts when she's asleep. I don't know that it happens to her as spontaneously as it happens to me, but she has, talked about seeing ghosts when she's asleep. She saw her grandma when her grandma passed and stuff like that. So I think that was a really important detail that I missed the last video. And let's see, another thing I want to talk about. So yeah, that's my family gifts. Oh, there was one dream I know of that wasn't bad that involved ghosts. So I was, oh my gosh, I was around this river. Like, I don't really remember it too clearly. I just remember a river, and people were swimming in the river. Normally you don't want to swim in this river or you'll die, because it was the Missouri River, and the Missouri River is extremely strong. If you go in to the Missouri River without a life jacket or anything, you'll probably be pulled under. But we were all having a good time just swimming in this river, and I didn't really think much of it at the time. Until someone said that they were all dead, that everyone I was seeing was all dead. And I was like, oh, cool. At least you're not trying to attack me, because the dreams that I'm accustomed to, I'm getting attacked half the time, or chased. Going back to the nightmares, though, another really bad one that I had. This one was probably the worst one of all. This happened when I was about in high school, and I do remember a lot of details from this one because, like, it is burned in my mind. So it starts off, I'm hanging out with my friend. I knew that this guy wasn't a Christian, and I was still very strongly Christian in high school. Like, maybe not as much as I was when I was a kid. I definitely had a stronger faith when I was a kid, and it was definitely starting to dissipate as I went to high school because of all the dreams that had been having. And so this guy, I was hanging out with this guy in my dream, and we were in a park. And we were hanging out with these two other girls. Him and one of the girls had disappeared, and so I was like, where did they go? And I went looking for them. When I finally found them, my friend was stuffing her dead body inside of the trunk of his car in the dream. And I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, what are you doing? Why did you kill her? What did she do to you? And he didn't say anything. He said nothing to me. And he picked up an axe and he started swinging an axe at me. And I had mainly, up at this point, I had trained myself to recognize a bad dream. I had trained myself to recognize a nightmare. I would become lucid and I would wake myself up. One way or another, I would wake myself up. Sometimes I had to try really hard. Sometimes I didn't have to try hard at all. I would just wake up. But this one, I couldn't tell that it was a dream. I thought it was actually happening, that it was real. Just because, for some reason I couldn't feel myself laying down like I normally do. I was really, like, immersed in this dream, I guess you could say. And so when he started swinging an axe at me, I was kind of like, dude, what's your problem? And of course, I started running, and he started chasing me. And at some point down the line, he had gotten a chainsaw, and I think he killed the other girl with the chainsaw, but I was still kind of running. I don't know what made me think this, but I came to the conclusion that he was possessed by something. Probably because he was such a, to me, he was a good guy. At the time, he was a good guy. And I just remember kind of capturing him, kind of holding him down with rope, kind of like sedating him. Well, not sedating him, but like restraining him. And I shoved him in my car, and of course he's struggling, and I knew that the rope that we had on him wasn't going to hold very long, even though, like, in the dream it was like super high quality rope that, was really hard to break. So I put him in the car, and I started driving around to all the Catholic churches to see if I could get an exorcism for him. And as I was taking him to the churches in the dream, I was turned away over and over again. And so the priests, they were like, no, we can't help you, we can't help you, we can't help you. And I was kind of like, what the fuck? So I was like, alright, I guess I'll just have to do the exorcism myself. So I did. I started in on it. I had my Bible in my hand. I was reading from it. I was doing, I had the cross, the holy water, everything. And Oh, I remember why. I remember what made me think he was a demon now. So, as he was chasing me, a face kind of popped out. It had this guy, this face like popped out of his face. I don't know how else to describe it, but his face popped out of this guy's face, and the person that popped out of my friend's face his hair was silver. He had silver hair, short silver hair, and green eyes, and that's why I was like, oh, he's possessed. Anyway, going on back to the attempted exorcism. So as I was exorcising the demon from my friend's body, um, he popped out again, and of course he was yelling profanities at me, all that. Um, and I remember demanding for his name because I remember reading that if you demand for their name and you get it, you're weakening the demon. I did get the demon's name. He said that his name was Abigor. I want y'all to know right now. I want y'all to know. Up until this point, I had never heard of the demon Abigor. I had never heard of him. I know now he's in the Bible somewhere. I don't know where till this day. I don't know where, but he is a biblical demon. I searched him up after having this dream. I searched him up, and he's a real demon. In fact, let me see if I can actually find the information on him right now. Oh my god, guys, it was just so crazy. It says that he's the Grand Duke of Hades, a great manipulator of men, including inducing them to acts of murder and genocide. Um, and I will copy this and put this in the description box below so everyone can see it. But I had no idea who this demon was. I'd never heard of him, but he came into my dream and he was real. He's a real demon. And he is sometimes depicted as a man with silver hair, green eyes. Oftentimes he'll be, at least that's one of them, and oftentimes he'll be like on a horse type deal. And it was just really scary. It was super scary. And the fact that I got an actual demon, like in the dream, someone I hadn't heard of, but was real, that to me was just, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Why does this keep happening? You know, I was getting really fed up. I was asking God questions. I was really like, why is this happening? Why aren't you helping? Why are you allowing them to enter my dream? Why are you allowing me to be attacked? So I spent years trying to find answers on why I was having these nightmares. I spent years trying to figure out how to stop them. I would do any kind of prayer that would help me stop them. I, did the whole prayer to Michael or Raphael, whatever, to try and stop these nightmares. I would, it never worked. None of it worked. I would have nightmares like every other day, pretty much. I had to live in fear of having these nightmares. Oftentimes, I would go without sleep. I did not want to sleep, just in case I had a nightmare that night. And there were a few times where I would be having nightmares for a week straight, and I would always, like, that would happen, I was waking up at 3 o'clock on the dot. So I was spending years trying to get answers. I looked at any religion that I could. Unfortunately, for me, I wasn't really expanding outside of Wicca. So I would be looking at like Wiccan solutions and all that, but when it came to Wicca, I couldn't read the books. Every time I tried to read the books, I would not be able to focus at all. Which is, to me, I could at least force myself to read some books, but these ones I couldn't. My eyes would bug out trying to read them, and I just couldn't read them. Couldn't read any sort of like Wiccan book or whatever. To this day, I can't really read any Wiccan books. They still like, my eyes still bug out, and I'm still, I can't go more than maybe 2 or 3 pages before I have to like put it down because I can't read past that point for some reason. So I was spending years finding answers. Have I found the answers yet on the dreams? No, not really. But since finding Hecate and um since finding Hecate, those have kind of stopped. I'll go more into that right now. So I had a phase in middle school with the Greek gods that like I was obsessed with the Greek gods. I wanted to know everything I could about the Greek gods and goddesses. Somehow, for some reason, um Hecate had never shown up like in any search results or any stories that I had read. I had read on Hades and Persephone, but for some reason, I guess the versions I was reading didn't include Hecate at all. Um, because the stuff that I read, she wasn't in them. So I had no idea who Hecate was, and that's kind of what like started it when I first saw this video in my recommendations. Greek god, like it was like labeled Greek goddess Hecate or something like that. Her mythology, the mythology on her, and I was like, what's this? I thought I knew all of the Greek gods. Um, so I was like, okay, that's strange that I didn't know about her. But then there was also this Nordic goddess video above hers that I was more interested in. I also had a Nordic gods phase too that I really liked. Um, Reading their mythology and reading about their gods and goddesses. But not as intensely as the Greek gods and goddesses. So I was more interested in the Nordic one, but something was telling me to watch the one on Hecate and to just watch the one on the Nordic goddess later. I clicked on the one on Hecate because it was such a strong gut feeling, and like my mind, I stared at the two videos for maybe a good 15 minutes before I finally clicked on Hecate's video. And everything kind of came into light. So the first thing was that, oh, before I tell you that, I need to tell you guys, I was angry at God. Okay, throughout my teen years, while I was having these nightmares, I didn't feel like he was there. I felt like every time I prayed, I was talking into the void. My faith was starting to really diminish. I went from being really, like, this really strong faith to, like, where the are you? Where are you? Where the hell are you? I never really felt God's presence at all. Never. I never felt that he was there. But when I watched the video on Hecate, I immediately knew she was there. She was, oh my god, it was amazing. I felt like this loving presence as I was watching her video. I felt like this really loving energy just wash over me pretty much. Sorry, I'm having a really bad hair day. But so her energy like washed over me, and I was amazed and I was drawn to it. I was like, I wanna be able to feel this energy more. I want to know everything I can about her. Like, what other information is there on her? And I remember the first person I started watching was Raven Ways. Raven Ways has a really good channel. I don't know. I don't know how to describe her. Just go check out her channel. She's very informational on Hecate. I learned a lot from her. I learned a lot from her about, who our goddess is, what she's like, type deal. And then no, I watched her for a few months. I rewatched a lot of her videos. I was also watching other people's videos on like book recommendations and all that stuff. A lot of the books that were recommended though, it was like reading the Wiccan books. I got like 2 or 3 pages in and I couldn't read anymore. So I was kind of like, what's the big deal? What's the deal here? Um, and it was probably just not where I was supposed to be. These aren't books I'm supposed to be reading. I'm supposed to be reading other things. These are not the books that Hecate wants me to read. More than likely. Um, what else?